Okay, good morning everyone. Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning, Mu'adin Simha, as we are today on the 5th day of Sukkot, the 3rd day of Hol HaMoed. And we should be zochet to have all the Simha of this holiday showered upon you and your family. We just, Baruch Hashem, heard amazing news of the death of this Sinwar, Yimach Shemo, and in the most unexpected of ways, that we weren't even trying to get him. We didn't even know he was there. And Baruch Hashem, we to see some sort of, if you could call it even a comfort, that it came full circle on Sukkot, just 1 year later from the day that he planned on trying to destroy Am Yisrael. But little did he know that we all are going to come back stronger and better, and we pray for the death and all the Rishaim. We pray for the return of the hostages and for the safety and the protection of all of Am Yisrael. My friends, our Parasha Vezot Haberacha. It's a Parasha that we don't often get to study because we are in Sukkot mode. So we often speak about the Sukkah, the beauty of the Sukkah, the 4 species, the Simcha of the holiday. But it's a Parasha. And of course, as we are studying this year, the Orah Hayim HaKadosh, and our commentary is coming to an end with the Orah Hayim. And, I think it's appropriate to finish the year as we start over with the new book, the new Bereshit, starting from the beginning all over again. It's appropriate to dedicate at least one class at the end of the year to Vezot HaBeracha through the lens of the Orah Hayim HaKadosh. I really think we owe him a tremendous gratitude, Hakarat HaTov, to this amazing masterpiece of a commentary, to the Orah Hayim. A year ago when we started to study this commentary, we had no idea what lay ahead, what was in store for us. Not only the Hidushim, but the love of Torah that he gave us, the smile that he put on our face every single day with his beautiful words, just juicy and delicious and gorgeous Hidushim, something that you can never think a human being could think of. Orah Hayim thought of, and we're very indebted. We're very grateful that we had his commentary, that he shared it with the world. Just imagine 500 years ago, he had all these Hidushim. Imagine he kept them up here. Chacham Ovadia says, Keneh lecha haver. You got to buy yourself a friend. He says the word keneh also means pen. Your pen is your friend. If you have Hidushim, my friends, write them down. Don't keep them here. Share them. So that's what our rabbis, they did. They shared their thoughts, their insights, their inspiration, their chizuk with the world. Baruch Hashem. It was really an amazing commentary. And Zechuto yagen alenu. May his merit stand there to protect us. Wherever we are, all of the listeners, that you are here really every day, whether you're here live or you're here afterwards on the recording or whatever platform it is. And I know many of you have emailed me and texted me and shared with me your opinion and your appreciation, your thoughts on the Orah Hayim and how beautiful of a commentary it is. And my holy beracha could be that the upcoming year, Bereshit, we should find a commentary that should be hopefully just as good, even half as good. We'll take it. That's how good it was, the Orah Hayim. But I'm sure they're all going to be good and amazing. So either way, without further ado, let's jump right in to today's class with the Orah Hayim HaKadosh on the Pasuk. Parashat Vezot HaBeracha, it's the last parasha of the Torah. It's an interesting parasha because it doesn't get its own Shabbat. We don't read it on a Shabbat. We read it on the Simchat Torah. That's when we read it. And then we finish, and then the Shabbat that follows is already Bereshit. It's the only parasha that doesn't get a Shabbat, is Parashat Vezot HaBeracha. But what does it mean, Vezot HaBeracha? It means, and this is the blessing. The opening verse says, Vezot HaBeracha, Asher berach Moshe ish Elohim et bnei Yisrael. And this is the blessing that Moshe, the man of God, blessed the Jewish people. Lifnei moto. This is the blessing. And the Or HaHayim right away says, Sarich Lada'at, we have to understand, Omro Vav. What does it say? Vezot. What's the and? The Vav, it's an interesting way to begin the sentence. Vezot. Why Ve? What would be wrong if you started with just Zot? Zot Haberacha. This is the blessing. What's and? What is it adding to? The word and. What's it adding to? And this is the blessing. And says the Or HaHayim. Pasuk over here, with the word Ve, with the letter Ve, it's coming to praise this saintly man of Moshe. Magadelu ma'asav. Look how great his deeds are. Because right before this pasuk, the last pasuk that we read at the end of last week's parasha, the pasuk right before this one, it says, Hehlit hagezerah al Moshe lamut. The Torah stated the decree on Moshe to die, that he's not going into Israel. Okay, Omro, like we just read, Ale el har ha'abarim. God said, Moshe, go up on the mountain, ve'umut, and die, al asher, because you transgressed against me. And the parasha basically gave Moshe the stamp. Look at the words right before. Go back one verse. Last week, Parashat Ha'azinu. It says, Ki meneged terei ha'aretz, you will see the land from there. It's talking about the Transjordan. V'shama lo tavo el ha'aretz, but you will not enter the land. Asher anu t'lem Yisrael, I'm giving to the Jewish people. So Moshe was just told how his fate is sealed. Now if you're Moshe, you're not going into Israel. What are the thoughts going on in your head? Im ken, yomar ha'omer. A person may think, Ki ze Moshe ha'ish, tina hayta belebo al mitato. That this man Moshe would have maybe some resentment. He would have a grudge in his heart. Asher hayu la'asiba am bnei Israel. Because it's the Jewish people that I got hit for. I'm punished really because of them. The reason Moshe is not going into Israel is because he hit the rock, because they asked for water, they complained. So in a way, it's their fault almost. And Moshe, you would think, you guys, you're the reason I'm not going in. Ahar sheratz aharehem kasus. I ran after you like a horse my whole life. What I didn't do for you for 40 years. And it was only in the last year, by the way, that they were so pushy. We need water. We need water. Tachilak, Hajeh. Okay, get you the water. You pushed me to a point. You pushed my button. Now I'm decreed I can't go into Israel. And now I'm not going to be enter Asher Chsefa v'gam kalata nafsho that Moshe was so yearning for. V'teva enosh yarhik hasovev ra. It's human nature. Human nature would be to be very upset, to reject this person that caused him ill. Even though it's true, the tzaddik, the righteous, maybe he's tolerant. The tzaddik is tolerant. Tzaddikim don't get even. We know that. That's any tzaddik. Yeah, they don't get even. I don't hate you. Aval kirvat halev, but feeling of closeness, to feel love, that's almost humanly impossible. To dispel this, Hashem comes in this pasuk and he says, Vezot Haberacha. Not only didn't Moshe hate the Jews, and he was just told you're not going in, and it's final. And you would think Moshe would have hatred in his heart. He would hate him. He would be upset at them. Says the Torah, not only wasn't he upset at the Jews, Vezot Haberacha, but he blessed them. He blessed the people. Wow. To tell you what kind of special person we're dealing with over here. Moshe Rabbeinu, not only did he not hate, did he not have a grudge, but he even blessed the Jewish people. This is something that is very hard to do. Think in your own life. Sometimes there's a person that gets you in trouble. There's a person that causes you grief, causes you pain. Sometimes there's people in our lives that we told them not to do something. They didn't listen to us, and they maybe separated the family. They destroyed something. They hurt us. They caused us to not be able to enter a promised land, whatever that looks like in our own personal level. Maybe it's making certain money. Maybe it's being able to marry someone. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. You really hurt me, and I told you not to do it. But you didn't listen. You're so stubborn. And it would be normal for us to have a certain negative feeling towards that person. We learn from Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatness of a man is to be able to not only forgive, but to also even start blessing that person. To say, you know what, I still love you. Even though you hurt me, even though you did these things to me, but it's okay. You're my people. You're a Jew. You're family. And I still love you. Even though maybe you're hurting me. You're really hurting me. And this is something that Moshe Rabbeinu achieved. Vezot Haberacha. And this is the blessing. He not only didn't hate them, but he even blessed them. That is a remarkable level. That is something that I think it's hard to reach, but it's something that we should strive for. Think of the people in our own lives, the people that hurt us, to try to think, how can I not only, not get even, how can I be a blessing for that person? And Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't think he learned this, by the way. He didn't learn this from himself. He learned it from Hashem. He learned this from God. Our rabbis tell us that the Torah begins with Hesed and ends with Hesed. That means that Hesed in God's eyes is a very important thing. It's so important that it begins with Chesed and it ends with Chesed. If you open the opening chapters, you'll find kindness. And the closing chapters, you'll find kindness. And the rabbis tell us, where do we find kindness in the beginning and where do we find kindness at the end? And listen to the example they bring. Say right in the beginning, when Adam HaRishon ate from the tree, remember he realized that he was unclothed. So it says that God, Pasuk says, Vayas Hashem Elokim le'Adam ul'ishto kotnot or, that God made these leather clothing for man, okay, leather robes for Adam and his wife, Vayalbishem, and he dressed them. So God made for Adam and his wife clothing. Gemara says this is an example of kindness, that he clothed Adam, he gave him clothing. Adam HaRishon originally, he didn't realize that he was naked. He didn't realize. But then when he ate, the Yetzer Hara entered his body. He needed to cover himself. So God gave him clothing. By the way, from which tree did he make him clothing from? From the fig tree, right? Very good. That's why some say that the tree they ate from was a fig tree, because that's the leaves that he gave them. But either way, God made for Adam and Chava clothing, and he dressed them. That's an example of kindness in the opening verses. Okay? And what about the closing verses? Where do we find kindness? Gemara continues and says, right when Moshe dies, it says that God, Vayikbor oto, he buried him. We know that burial is one of the greatest mitzvot that a person could ever do. To bury someone, it's called chesed shel emet. To bury or to pay for the burial of somebody that doesn't have money, because the person that's dying, they'll never be able to repay you. There's nothing they could ever do for you. They're dead. That is the ultimate act of kindness. Moshe is dead, but God, nonetheless, he buries him. He does for him an act of kindness. So you see that the Torah begins with kindness and it ends with kindness. And Rabbi Zweig, he asks an amazing question. Is that the first example of kindness? God gave Adam clothing? I could find you earlier examples of kindness. I mean, what about the fact that he gave him a wife? Okay, I mean, now some may say that that's not kindness, okay? But what about the fact that he created the world? He created the world for Adam. That's kindness. You're waiting all the way till, chapter 2 that he eats? Where is it? Maybe even chapter 3 that he gives him the clothing? That's kindness in the Torah in the beginning. You couldn't find me an earlier form or act of kindness from God, of generosity. Says Rabbi Zweig something so powerful. When God does kindness for Adam in the beginning, when you love someone, when someone's your best friend, when someone's your family, your son, your daughter, think of someone that you have tremendous feelings of love for. That person that you help, that's not really called kindness. You're doing it for them because really it's not kindness, it's you, it's part of you. Let me ask you, this morning you woke up, you showered, did you say I'm doing kindness? I'm doing kindness to yourself. You, of course. You take care of yourself. You brush your teeth. When you feed yourself every morning, right? You're drinking a coffee. Did you say, oh, I'm going to do chesed, I'm going to go buy myself a coffee? You're not doing yourself a chesed. For yourself, right? Of course not. When you love someone, they're a part of you. That's not really called kindness. When God helps Adam in the beginning chapters of the story, that's not really chesed. When you still have an awesome, tight friendship, that's not called chesed. You know what chesed is? Chesed is when the guy spits in your face. Chesed is when the guy hurts you. Chesed is when he goes against you. He bothers you. He hurts you financially. He hurts your reputation. He does something that messes you over. And now he comes and he needs you. That's chesed. And it's only therefore in chapter 3, when Adam sins, he eats from the tree, he goes against God. He damaged, he broke the relationship. Now, God says, you know what? Now really, I'm upset at you. But bottom line, you need clothing. I'm going to help you. Here you go. Our rabbis say, that's chesed. The first form of chesed we find is not when God gave Adam a wife, or when he gave him paradise, or when he gave him animals to serve him. That's not chesed. To have someone that you love, it's yikapav, the creation of your own hands, your own child that you love, that you do things for your baby. When you feed your baby that you love, your little infant, that's not called chesed. It's not called chesed. At the end of the day, you love him, it's your child. Chesed is when someone hurts you. They ruin the friendship. They damage the relationship. And you go out of your way anyways to help them. Sometimes we wake up, we're in love with our spouse. We have a great relationship. Marriage is going great. They ask me for something, of course. I'm here. I love you. Whatever you need. But then sometimes we get in a fight. Sometimes the marriage isn't great. Sometimes it's a little bit on the rocks. And we know they need us. They ask us for something. Oh yeah, you come to me? Oh yeah, we're in a fight. How do we respond? That's chesed. Chesed is precisely in those moments that we don't want to help. To learn from Hashem that even when Adam spits in God's face, so to speak, and he eats from the tree, the one commandment I told you not to do, why'd you do it, Adam? Nonetheless, here you go. Here's clothing. That's chesed. That's the same as Moshe. Moshe learned from God that even though maybe I'm upset at you, even though you hurt me, I can't go into Israel, but here's a blessing. I love you guys anyways. And that is really what God does to Moshe at the end of his life. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't go into Israel because of a sin that he did. And although Moshe may feel like it's the Jewish people's fault, at the end of the day, Moshe did something wrong to God. And now he's buried outside of Israel. But yeah, guess what? God says it's okay. Vayikbor, I'm still going to bury you. I'm still going to do for you a hesed. That's the kindness all the way at the end of the Torah. Our rabbis tell us in Perashat Shemini that there's a bunch of birds that are kosher and there's a bunch of birds that are not kosher. And how do we know which birds are, which birds aren't? What is the sign for a kosher bird? If you want to eat a piece of meat, so you have to first of all make sure it's a kosher species. So as an example, the animal itself has to have two signs. Anyone know what they are? For a kosher animal, it has to be chew its cud, and they have to have split hooves, okay? The bottom of the animal, the feet have to be two separate hooves, okay? It can be connected. If you look at a kosher animal, you'll see that it's two separate hooves. Each foot is two separate ones. That's the sign for an animal. What about a fish? What's a kosher fish? If you go to a Costco and you want to buy fish from the fish market, you're allowed to buy fish. You have to be careful. It has to be a kosher fish. Obviously, you can't have shrimp. You can't have lobster. But why? What makes? By the way, you should be very careful because a lot of times you go to a restaurant you're ordering just a salad, they're putting shrimp sauce. You got to be very, very careful. Okay? But either way, you go to a Costco, you want to get fish. What's a kosher sign for fish? Fish has to have fins and scales. If a fish has fins and scales, you know it's kosher. You're allowed to buy it from anyone in the world, technically. Okay? No problem. Okay? Fine. Very good. What about a bird? What is a kosher symbol for a bird? For a bird, there's no symbol. For a bird, it's a list. Okay? The first ever kosher list, before anyone, was the Torah's list of birds. Okay? We have Mesorah, we have tradition. Which birds yes, which birds no. One of the birds that the Torah lists as not kosher is called a hasidah. Hasidah, in English, some say it's a stork. Okay? Now, what is this hasidah? Hasidah, Rashi says, you know why she's called a hasidah? Interesting word. Hasidah. Because Rashi says, hesed, from the word hesed. She does kindness im havroteha bimzonot. She does kindness with her friends by giving them food. Now, the Ba'alei Musar ask, one second, if the part of why we eat kosher or not kosher, and again, we've given classes at length on this. Feel free to go back to our classes back in Parashat Shemini. That kosher, part of kosher is because there is a certain concept, even today for sure we know it, but the Torah recognized it 3,000 years ago, that you are what you eat. And the foods that we eat, they affect us. And so, the kosher animals, they're very calm in nature. And the non-kosher animals, they're very aggressive in nature. And as an example, think of all the kosher animals that you're allowed to eat. They're very calm. Sheep, goat, cow, right? Think of the not kosher ones. They're aggressive. They're carnivores. And it's true with the birds. The birds that we're allowed to eat, they're not predators. So this chasidah over here, the Ba'alei Musar, they ask, so then why is this bird not kosher? If she does kindness, shouldn't she be a kosher bird? Shouldn't we eat it? That should be a kosher, that should be a bird that we should be obligated to eat. There should be a holiday that we celebrate eating the hasidah. If you ask me, we have Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot, and Hesed. We should have a holiday called Hesed that we eat the chasidah because we should become more kind, like this beautiful bird. She does kindness with her friends. But yet the Torah comes and says, no, she's not a kosher bird. How come? Says Rabbi Zweig something very powerful. You know why? It's true she does kindness. But who does she does kindness with? Who does she do kindness with? She does it with her friends. She's only kind to her own kind. To be a real Baal Chesed is you're kind to everybody. Kindness doesn't discriminate. The Hasidah, she helps her friends. Havroteha. If you're not her friend, not helping you. There's certain people, they help specific types of people. If you're like me, I help you. If you go to the same shul as me, if you believe in the same ideology as me, if you wear the same color hat as me, if you send your kids to the same type of school as me, I help you. But if you're not, I don't know you. Go ask your own people for help. If you're Sfaradi, I'm not going to help you. If you're Ashkenazi, I'm not going to help you. If you're this, if you're that. Unfortunately, that is something that we learned from the Hasidah. The Hasidah is ready to help her friends. because that's who I like. That's who I'm comfortable with. I like my friends. I know them. The Torah says, yeah, that's a shortcoming. You're tarif. You're not kosher if you only help your friends. Hesed means where I don't like you, if I'm not comfortable with you. Hesed begins where my comfort level ends. That is what I think we learn from this week's parasha. Vezot Haberacha. Moshe Rabbeinu was very upset at the Jewish people, but he didn't allow that anger, the grudge. He forgave, and he even blessed. Vezot Haberacha. There's an amazing, amazing story that is told about the Satmar Rav Yoel Teitelbaum. The Satmar Rav passed away many years ago. The head of the Satmar Chassidut sect. And it's known thing that the Satmar Rav was not a Zionist. He was not a Zionist. Now, I just want to say parenthetically, that does not mean that he was standing there with Palestine. He wasn't standing there with Palestine. He never sent his students to stand there with Palestine. People that you see today, the Neture Karta, that are standing there, holding up, shaking hands with enemies of the Jewish people. The Satmar Rebbe never did that. He never endorsed that. He never pushed. A lot of people think, oh yeah, that's Satmar. That's not Satmar. It could be extremists. That's not Satmar. That's not something that the Rebbe endorsed. But either way, he still was not pro the Zionist movement. As a movement, he wasn't for the movement, or whatever his opinion was, whatever his reason was. Of course, he loved Eretz Israel. But to have the country run in a secular way, he felt that not something that I could endorse. Okay, fine. Whatever his ideology is. And there was a Israeli journalist, a secular Israeli journalist that was very Zionist, of course. And he was known to write out and to speak and publish letters and essays and articles and jokes against the Satmar Rebbe. And he would very blatantly write out against him and knock him and put him down. What kind of Jew is this? Doesn't believe in Eretz Yisrael. And he was maybe one of the greatest antagonists of the Satmar Rav. And it was a known thing that this guy, everyone knew this name. Well, unfortunately, this fellow, one day, his wife, she was not feeling well, and she needed surgery. She needed a special type of treatment that they provided in America. So this journalist traveled to the U.S., right here, to the tri-state area. He stayed with his wife, and they were in a hotel. And of course, as she's undergoing the treatments, the expenses started piling up on him, and it was getting too much for him to carry. The medical and the hospital, and you know, they have children back in Israel, and he's taking off from work. And the fellow asked around, who do people go to for help? You know, financial assistance. The story takes place maybe 50 years ago. He asked, you know, where can I go for some financial assistance? And so the people that he asked, they said, of course, we know everyone here, whoever needs help, you go to the Satmar Rav. When the guy heard that, he started cracking up. He said, the Satmar Rav, you crazy? Can I go to the Satmar Rav? Do you have any idea the kind of beef that me and him have? There's no way. Okay, you don't want to go, you don't want to go. But of course, kept pushing it off as much as he can, tried getting help from other avenues, but it was not enough. At a certain point, he was cornered and he realized he had no other choice. He mustered up the courage, the strength. He goes over to the Satmar Rav. He sits down in front of his office, and he was hoping he could maybe get some help without having to give away his identity. So he's sitting in front of the Rav, and he says, you know, my wife, she's here, I need some help. And the Satmar Rav, he says to him, sure, no problem, tell me, what's your name? And the guy pauses, he hesitates, and finally he shares his name. He says, my name is so-and-so. And the Satmar Rav, the second he heard that, he looked up, and of course he knows the name, his biggest opponent maybe. And he looks up, and the guy said right away, I thought the rabbi is going to curse me, kick me out. And he closed his eyes. The Satmarav closed his eyes. And he called his Gabai over. He whispered something in his ear. The Satmarav said, he said to the guy, he said, okay, I'm going to help you. On one condition. I want you to promise me that before you go back to Israel, when your wife's better, I want you to come back to visit me. What's the guy going to say? He has no choice. He says, okay, I accept the deal. The Satmarav hands him an envelope. The guy looks inside. It's a lot more than he even asked for. He said, what's this? He said, listen, you need for the treatment, but you also need, your wife, you're staying far, you're staying in a hotel very far. You gotta stay in a hotel in the city next to your wife. So I gave you extra money to stay in a hotel in the city, to afford a hotel to stay in New York City. The guy couldn't believe it. He said, okay, really, thank you, I appreciate it. And he says, but don't forget our deal. When you go back home, you got to come back to me. He says, deal, no problem, Rabbi, I accept, thank you. And the guy in his back of his mind, he said, I knew for sure the rabbi felt bad because my wife was sick, but the second she gets better, I'm going to go visit him on the way home, and he's going to hit me on the head. Anyways, he says, months passed by. The wife, thank God, she started her condition improved. Finally, it was ready for them to go back home. And he says they were on the way to the airport. And then he remembered the deal that he had with the rabbi. And he was ready to continue going to the airport. I got what I needed. But he felt that it was unjust, ungrateful. So, he makes a U-turn, goes back to where the Satmar Rebbe lived. Again, knocks on the door, walks into the apartment, and the Satmar Rav says, how's your wife doing? Is everything okay? Thank you for coming back. And the guy said again, I was bracing myself, I thought he's going to hit me on the head. Finally, the rabbi opens the drawer, he pulls out another envelope that had this guy's name on it. He said, here you go. And the guy said, what's this? The Satmar Rav said, this is an envelope with money. He says, but what do I need money? I'm going back, I'm done. This is true, you're done. But when you came to me the first time, you had mentioned that your kids you had to pay for extra help. You had mentioned that you were getting docked from your job because you weren't working there for months and months. And I said to myself, you for sure could use a little bit of extra money as a boost. In Israel, we know the financial situation is difficult. So here's some extra cash just to help you stay ahead till you get back on your job, get back on your feet. Hatzlacha rabah. And with that, he gave the man his envelope and his blessing, and he left. And the guy turned around, he started walking away with tears in his eyes. And he said, wow, what kind of saintly man is this? Here is a guy who my job was to write against him. And the rabbi knew that. And still he said, it doesn't matter. You're hurt right now. And here's money for the job that you weren't getting paid, for the docking. They docked you, they took away from your salary. Here's some extra money. That is what I think our parasha is talking about. That is, my friends, true chesed. True kindness is not when you like the guy. It's a guy that maybe writes out against you. He hurts you. But you find in your heart room to say, but it doesn't matter. Because he's a Jew. And right now he needs help. And that's what chesed is. And that's what Moshe did. That's what God did. God understood. God teaches us. You hurt me. You sinned. You ate from the tree. I told you not to eat. It's okay. Here's clothing. Just because you made a mistake, that's not going to stop the kindness, the love that I'm going to have for you. We should be zocheh, all of us, to aspire to this level, to be able to reach these levels of kindness, of chesed, of greatness. In these days of Sukkot, we challenged ourselves a few days ago to be proactive in our chesed, to try to do one act of chesed a day, not when someone asks, but where we initiate. But maybe today we can make that one act of proactive chesed an act where not only we look to help someone, but maybe we look to help someone that hurt us. We look to help someone that we're upset at, or we're jealous of, or we have something against, we have some type of maybe friction with. But it doesn't matter. Let me help them because they need it. And that's what chesed is. Okay, my friends, we'll stop over here. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.